tired, I want peace, and I want to feel like I'm dead. That's when I reached out first to my therapist. She was pretty shocked that I was even walking around normally with how deep I was into
Postpartum
depression.
depression. How is your mental health as a mom? Can you recall the times that you struggled with your own anxiety, maybe postpartum depression, postpartum rage, or maybe you are still navigating those challenges day to day?
Did it just go away? No, I'm probably still going through it because I think it's a journey and I think it's a lot of work, self work, to do things that you don't want. I need to accept that first, and then I need to navigate through life, through the depression with it.
Well, my guest today shares her personal accounts with postpartum depression as not only a mama of two, but also someone who has been in the limelight pretty much her entire life. Shheethal Robin Uthappa, former tennis star, life coach, and a hypnotherapist. One of the things as moms we connected on is the amount of taboo that happens after not only you have your first child, if you are navigating and starting that journey. We share tips and tools and literally some of the real life things that aunties and people don't really want you to know, and what tends to happen as a result with the feeling guilty, feeling shameful, and feeling bad for even feeling those emotions, because everything is supposed to be beautiful.
I took this responsibility upon myself that because I have kids now, I don't want them to carry or be a part of my baggage, and that I lessen their baggage.
How the journey of motherhood has been. But before I get to motherhood, I want to start with you. So, who is Shheethal?
You now that you have told me that you know me, please go ahead.
I mean, we know you
No.
as like one of the youngest tennis players to have represented the country, India. And
Yes, I did play tennis for a long time, and I think I played it as a profession for a long time. And I think after a point, I reached a space where I realized I only played tennis. I didn't do anything else, and then started to look for experiences other than playing a sport. And I feel like that was a miss in my life.
But I want to even start earlier than that. So, what got you into playing tennis
Tennis,
at 8?
yeah, actually, that's a funny story. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, like how were you like, in love with the sport?" Or there's so many questions. And then for me, I'm like, when I think back, I actually played tennis because at that point, okay, let me go back. So my parents got divorced when my brother and I were very, very young. Like I was 6, 7. And I think after they separated, we stayed with our dad. And at that point, he had a business, and at that point there was no concept of nannies, and there was nobody to look after us. So I think he wanted more time, like all of us want with,
Of
for
course.
ourselves, so that he could finish work and then come. So he put us into a tennis club, which
Like
was
an after school program.
right, which was right next to both our schools, both mine and my brother's school.
Okay.
So we went there after tennis, and we would be there like for 2 hours, so that my dad could come back in the evening and pick us up, and that's how we started playing.
So, this is just like
Yeah,
put them in these after school sports.
yeah, for like for them to spend more time outside.
Sure.
And but I think at 9 or 10, 9, I think I entered a tournament which was under 10, and I think that was my first tournament, and then I won it. And then my dad was like, "What?" I was just like making a play so that I get time, and then
You didn't
she
miss
won.
a match.
I won the tournament without dropping a game.
Oh my goodness.
So my dad was like, okay. And then that's when he's like, okay, let's see if I'll make a play another tournament. And that's how it started. And I think initially I really thought like, hey, this is cool, because I think I had I mean, I didn't know then, but I had certain issues with self worth as a child because I felt like, when my parents separated without understanding anything, I think I took a part of that blame on myself,
Yeah.
which I realized only like 10 years ago. But,
Sure.
when I was working on myself,
Mm.
but at that point, that was, I think, my main emotion.
Yeah.
Having said that, it wasn't like guilt, but I did feel like, oh, what if it was because of me? Why did they separate because of me? And in that time, when I started winning, obviously your name is in the newspaper, and then you get a trophy, and then everybody's congratulating you. And then suddenly I felt like, hey, like I'm more than just somebody who's probably given grief to the parents. And I think suddenly I started looking at myself as a different person.
Mm.
And
Because you're also now winning money for these tournaments, right?
yeah, initially not much, but I think after a point, yeah, you do win prize money, but yeah, it became like, and that's the thing. Like initially, I was enjoying it because I was getting the attention,
Sure.
which probably was a miss in my family. Though my dad gave me all the attention he could, so I can't complain. But I think it was just that separation that made me feel a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and but yeah, initially I loved the attention. I thought like, oh, suddenly I became important, because I felt like I wasn't important. So I think after a point, my dad like then literally dedicated his life to make me play tennis professionally. But I think, I mean, it's great when I see his sacrifices, but for me, it became like, hey, I need to win now, or that's the only way that I earn money, and that's the only way our house is running. You
Because he
know,
left his shop
yeah, he literally stopped everything, and then
and he would
I
travel with
he
you.
traveled with me for until what six? I think until I was 16,
Wow.
and
And we were just kind of talking about you were traveling for sometimes 48 weeks out of
like,
the year.
yeah, people don't believe it, but I used to literally play for minimum 45 to 50 weeks. I used to get like 2 week break from tournaments, and that's because that's what put food on the table. And I think that really started affecting me, which
Yeah.
again I didn't realize then, but I stopped enjoying playing a sport. It
Did you ever feel like you were the one kind of like you were the breadwinner and you were you had to grow up really fast?
Yeah, at that point I didn't see it as a breadwinner. It was just how life looked to me. I didn't know better, and I thought, hey, somebody has to be earning.
Mm.
And because I became this person, who's playing, and from the outside was like shining and whatever, but for me it was like, oh my god, like if I don't win, we're gonna have less amount, or this month is gonna be tougher than the last. And it became like, I think, I mean, too uncertain,
Mm.
and like I got desperate to win.
Mm.
And well, I was winning a lot of tournaments, and not like I wasn't, but didn't never enjoyed it, because for me it's like, I won this, so okay, I can, till next month I'm fine.
You can
Yeah,
breathe.
yeah. And then never ending pressure, and I think that went on for a very, very long time.
I mean, it's you went to go and you played for and represented India as a country at the
Yes.
age of 13.
Yeah, so I started representing the country at the like under 14 age group, then under 16 and 18, and then women's. And yeah, like, it's like everybody who talks to me, like, oh my God, like you've played for the country, and, you've won so many tournaments. But for me, I feel emotionless with that, like it sounds
It sounds great.
great.
And it looks
And
great on paper and it looks great on
yeah,
all of the
but I
headlines.
have like a disconnect with that. I don't know, with everything that I did at that point, because I think there was a mismatch in how mature I was as a child or a human being to what I was doing or the responsibility that I was, not like he forced me, but it was just the situation of our life. So yeah, I think it impacted me not in the best way. Also, I had an issue with, for a very long time, I couldn't receive. I still struggle to receive. It's like I have to take care of myself, I have to take care of everybody. That was the only way that I functioned. And I think that is great because you become independent, but also like it's almost like I have a problem receiving. I think my husband has like really dug into that and I think helped me.
He's really good at boasting about you, by the way. He's
Yeah.
so good at it.
Yeah.
And I think many times we attract partners that are also seeing the light in us, or we attract people that also bring out that light
Yeah.
that is within. And I feel like, Robin does such a
Yeah.
great job
Yeah.
of that, because you did, all said and done, you represented the country for 15 years and you won the most amount of tournaments.
I did win a lot of tournaments from the time I was a child, but like I said, I genuinely, even now while I'm speaking about it, it's like there's a blank feeling for me. It's like
How are you feeling right now energetically?
I'm feeling, I don't know, peaceful. Just honestly, that's all I'm feeling. And it's just that I don't know. I'm. There's some like there are times even when I've spoken to my friends and even Robin, it's like why is it that there's a part that questions that, okay, don't I appreciate myself, or there's so many angles to it which I've questioned, but I just feel like at that age I wasn't probably ready to be the responsible person for the family, or an adult, or who brings in the brings in the food on the table. And but it was just how it was, and I just took it upon myself, and I think it didn't end until I actually stopped playing. And even after that, I think it took a long time for me to know that, hey, I can be taken care of also. But having said that, not that my dad did not take care of me. He took care of me in every way possible. And I mean, I've had the best relationship, best form of love that I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that. But like parallelly, I also was experiencing this.
Yeah.
So at that point, it just felt normal because I was getting the love, I was getting the affection, I was getting everything that I wanted as a child, I think emotionally. But this actually was going against a lot of things, which didn't realize then until it started impacting my life when I became an adult, when I got into relationships. It started,
How did it show up?
it's like I wouldn't allow people inside because I felt like, I became like almost like an alpha because I was the one.
You became more masculine.
Yeah, I still am, and keep working on the other side. But also, I grew up with two men, right? And my father and my brother. So I haven't seen a female energy around me while growing up. And the only memory I have of that was before my parents got divorced, which wasn't the most pleasant for me. Me and my mother didn't have like the best relationship, and I till date I don't know why, because actually I've asked her. If she watches this, I'm sure she'll again has an opportunity to answer me, because I've asked her many times why I felt like I wasn't good enough for her. So she didn't love me. That's the feeling I had. And yeah, it was weird. And I don't have like any good memories before the age of 6, 7. So yeah, so female energy is like almost was non-existent in my life until I started having friends in school and then college. And I have the most amazing, amazing friends who had very different upbringing from mine. And
Right.
then, when I met their mothers, it just felt like, hey, like this also is a possibility. Because until then, for me, it was like mother, how a mother is perceived,
Right. The warm, the nurturing,
like
the
the
loving.
ultimate being.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I feel it from the other side with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
but I've not experienced it. So for me, that was my dad, and
Mm-hmm.
I live it through whatever I've received with from my dad. And when people say mother's love, it's like it's only what I give my kids and not from the other side. So yeah.
Well, I mean, and how has that now? Because I want to segue into now you are a mom of two. And I know that many times, and we were just sharing this before, growing up with certain elements of trauma, certain elements of, call it setbacks, challenges, dysfunction, whatever we want to bracket it as or bucket it as. And you are now a life coach
Yeah.
and you coach many people
Yeah.
along these similar lines of transition and loss of oneself. And how did that then impact you or shape you and the type of mother that you wanted to become to your kids?
Uh, so I think initially I used to think I actually do not like kids at all, because I used to be like, please, no kids, no kids. And I think there was just a phase that I felt like, hey, I want to be a mom. I want to experience this. And I think when I was pregnant with my son, my older one, is when I started thinking, hey, I know my experience and it's probably not the best one. How do I make my child feel better than that? Is how it started. And I think I actually started going with the flow of things because it was so new for me. And I think because I did not have that like a mother figure, or even as an example of what a mother does or doesn't do while growing up, it was a blank for me initially. So it's only after I gave birth and the emotions that took over as a mother, I think I just followed my instinct with how I felt, the experiences, the good, the bad, the whatever.
Yeah.
I just went with it. And then, I mean, I cannot like tell you the largeness. It's so different from what I've always thought love was. What I always like thought, you can be in love with your partner, with your family, with your parents, even. But I think what you feel for that child is, I don't have words for it yet. I feel like there's another thing like greater than love, and that's what it is.
I mean, yeah, it is like it's the biggest gift. I feel like.
Yeah, it's something else. And like I don't think it's love. I think it's something greater. There's no they cannot you can't contain it in a word, I feel. And that's the feeling you have for a child. But yeah, like for me, I think I was just like, hey, I want to be true to who I am, but let them know that I'm always going to be here. I think was my priority with a child. And I don't know, I think for me, even when you asked, I'm like, I didn't have a certain way of how I want to be as a mother, because I feel like it's happened many a times that I plan a lot of things that, I want to be this way, that way.
Right.
And then I realized, hey, I don't like going out of the boundary of who I am. And I feel like every day I'm a different mom to my kids, and I'm very truthful to that. And I'm because it's very easy to try and be this way, that way, because okay, this is what works. Yes, there are certain things that you can do, take responsibility for,
Right.
but I think my criteria is to be who you are, so that also for me, I think they also watch you, like that, and they know that hey, it's okay to be,
And make mistakes.
yeah, and one day be up and down, and one day be lazy, one day be over active or whatever it is. But I feel like on a daily basis for me, if I can be true to who I am and be that to them, yeah, I think I want my journey to be that way.
Do you feel like you've healed the part of your inner child that had to grow up so fast?
Part of it, maybe. I think I actually, till date, don't know the depth of what is there, because whatever kind of shows up, and I have, dug into myself, where I've tried to find like what is this part, and how do I resolve things, how do I heal this. In my journey, it's happened that what shows up, I've healed, but then there's something more, and there are things that I've not been able to find yet. Until a couple of years back, I used to look for it, and okay, I know that there's something more, and when I started looking for it, I felt like I was going away from it. Like I felt that much more lost with my thing of my journey of looking for what I need to heal. So now I'm like, more, let it show up, and it will show up if it has to, and then I will address it, because I felt like me running behind it didn't help.
Right.
Not for me.
Like you're trying to fix
Yeah,
everything that
and
feels
make it right.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, and because I think I had this thing, like I took this responsibility upon myself that because I have kids now, I don't want them to carry or be a part of my baggage, and that I lessen their baggage. And I think slowly I've started accepting that, hey, I can't change things for them.
Yeah.
It's their journey, and they've chosen to be here because they probably are meant to be in this journey with me, with my baggage. Could become theirs, part of theirs, or not. That's not in my control. And I feel like I had to step back and say, it's fine as long as I take responsibility for my journey and for my healing whenever it shows up, and I'm doing the best that I can with what I can. That's all. That's all there is, and they're gonna be fine.
Well, and I think that's it's a beautiful approach to have. And I feel like a lot of times, because we are influenced by the way we were growing up or the elders around us, I was just sharing with you, I was just in India. I feel like every time I go back to India, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to be this like good bahu or this good daughter-in-law, which I'm kind of not. I'm very much the black sheep, rainbow sheep, whatever you want to call it. And
I'm with you on that. So.
Right? Cheers to the rainbow sheep. But I feel like there is this sense of this obligation that I have that I need to, be X, Y, and Z, but who dictates what is X, Y, and Z in the eyes of, your mother-in-law, or in the eyes of the people watching, and this concept. We were at this place yesterday, and there was this whole highlight, and I wanted to take a picture of it. Maybe I'll put it up for this episode if it makes it. But literally, the saying was "Log kya kenge," and I'm like, okay, guys, let's take a picture because it's literally part of the fabric of our social structure.
Correct.
And for you to say, I'm not going to try to control them.
Yeah.
It's funny because we were just in India, and I feel like every part of what my children were like running into, doing, playing, not playing, like everything was met with like a, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Or what will they think? Especially if you go to the restaurant, like if they're screaming and crying and causing a ruckus or throwing things, like that's not the way to behave at a restaurant. But we're like, well, they're kids, what are you supposed to do? And I love that you shared, well, I can't control them because that's their own journey. And I want to kind of go back to, because you were also married once. And I mean, we're part of the first marriage club, now the second marriage club, we needed to have a starter marriage. And I think for a lot of our audience who either is in a transition, in a breakup, going through a divorce, maybe even finding themselves again after um, having a loss of some kind, whether it was a relationship or maybe themselves, ushering into motherhood. How were you okay in finding love again, where you got to attract, your life partner who just happens to be a very well known and famous cricketer for those who are in the West. Cricket is kind of like our football, our basketball, if you will. And it's a very huge deal in India. It's one of the largest sports in the world. If you are outside of the US. and, and, and now you have two kids. So how was that? And is it possible to find love again?
I mean, I think it's possible to find love, I think many times, but I think it depends on the journey you're on. And for me personally, I feel like my first marriage, I think I got married very young and I think I don't know if I was matured enough to actually be in that space. But having said that, I think I got married, I think less than a year after my father passed away. And I think it was a very emotional decision, maybe, which probably, but again, having said that, now while I'm saying it, I'm thinking the decision I made then, it felt right then, and I think it was right. It's just that when I lived it, it didn't go the way it probably should have or could have, because I was not me and my husband then have the maturity to, I think, go through life the way we should have or could have,
Right.
or But having said that, today, do I regret the decision that I was married then? No, not at all, because the truth is I did feel that that was the best decision then, and it was. Because today, to think back, I'm like, hey, maybe it wasn't, but in that moment when I go back, I'm like, hey, that felt perfectly right. And it's just that our journeys, I think, didn't match in many ways.
Was there a specific point where you realized, okay, I think I'm ready to move on, or I think this is just not going to work? Like, was there a particular moment?
So funnily, the things you were saying before you asked me this, we all have a certain conditioning, right? And we were saying, "Log kya kahenge." So that part wasn't a big deal in my life because because I grew up with my dad. He always made me feel like you can be what you want, you can be who you want, you can be however you want. Never stop me from truly being who I am. Like, I felt like maybe wrong to say, but I felt like how men feel, that that's it. I can be what I want.
Like invincible.
That kind of a feeling. And I've always lived that. Amidst everything else that I was going through, one feeling is I felt confident about myself.
Do you think that's what kept you going with winning all of those tournaments?
Probably. But I think what it did was it instilled so much confidence in me as a person, and I carry that till date. And that is something that helps me with everything. But that didn't go too well in my marriage, because I think, your mother-in-law has a certain expectation, families have expectations, but I think I I didn't have that structure in my head because I wasn't conditioned. I wasn't conditioned for it,
Right.
and suddenly I felt like a shift of, hey, what are these norms that I'm supposed to fit into? And I think I was called a rebel. I'm always called a rebel because I don't necessarily go with the rules of the society or anything, anyone, because I believe that each one of us, and it's not just me, or I think for everybody, like I feel like you got to be yourself. And otherwise, like, you're just living in a structure or a mold that somebody has created and said, this is how you're supposed to be. And I feel like it's for me, it's a waste of a life, a journey, and I cannot do that. I personally cannot do that. And I think I'm able to say this because of the confidence I have experienced because of my dad. Because he allowed me, no matter what, he had his rules for me, all of that, but never made me feel like I cannot be something or I cannot do something. Like my rules were very different, like how much I can spend because we had less money was probably a bigger rule than what I could be,
Right.
as a girl, especially at that point.
Yeah.
So I think that that changed a lot in me, but it helped me because today when I look back, it's like even in my first marriage, I was like, oh my God, like I'm genuinely like, I used to be like this rebellious person fighting through everything, questioning everything, saying, why should I do it? I'm not like, why should I be cooking food or why should I be, making coffee or whatever it is? Because I felt like, why are these rules on me? Just because I'm married doesn't mean, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this A, B, C, D, E. And something, it didn't feel right.
Because you
It's,
didn't grow up with those cultural
I didn't.
expectations.
Yeah.
You were on the road for about 48 weeks in the
Yeah. I
year.
was traveling, I was independent, I was earning money. And so for me, it's like, I don't have to do this. And I'm not saying I don't want to do this, but I don't have to do this, because I think the minute somebody forced me to do it, as if you're just meant to do this because
These
this is
were,
how
this is
the
how women are supposed to be.
yeah. And that didn't go well with me. And I think that didn't work well, obviously, with him because it just didn't work well. And I think there were differences with us because of that. It started with that. And I think then we just, I think, went apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a journey that taught both of us a lot. And yeah, when I think we did end the relationship, it was like we had clarity. He and I had clarity of, or rather, why this was probably not the best for both of us. And today we both are
You're amicable.
happy. Yeah, of course. And happy in our own relationships. And yeah, today when we look back, it's like, oh my God, could we be this happy in that relationship? Probably not.
I love that you have an amicable relationship.
Yes.
Now, chapter 2
Yes.
of life with Robin, how have you made your relationship stand out so that you are both in this constant growth? Because I know he's also into growth
Yeah.
as well. How have you guys made it a priority?
So, Rob and I mean, we are, if there is the extreme of opposites, we are that. We actually are such opposites. But I think initially, I think it used to be fights, it used to be differences, it used to be egos. But I think now I think, grown to a place where we've understood that, hey, it's because of the differences, because of how like crazily opposites we are, is why we are able to grow pretty well and also quickly. I think like nobody in my life, and I mean no one in my life, has challenged me more than Rob. And initially didn't look at it like that, but then now I see that, hey, I don't need to look for places to grow. I wake up and there is a challenge. And it's the same for him. It's like, I think like I challenge him so much. It's like, and also we had two like very strong individuals with strong opinions. But I think we help each other grow so much. And now because we have come onto the same page and say, like we say, okay, this doesn't feel good about you to me, but how do I make it peaceful? How do I make it a
So
part
you
of?
have this understanding
Yes, we do.
between the two.
Now we do, because now we understand that, okay, this is something is bothering me about this, but I know that, hey, there's growth for me, because why is that bothering me? Why is that triggering me? Why is that making me feel uncomfortable? And now we're like, we are in the same team, and we constantly are working towards individual growth and growing as a relationship and growing as a couple. And also, I think now we've taken that responsibility of growing as parents and being those, not never ideal, but being the parents that we want to be to our kids, so that when they grow up, they know that, hey, this is normal.
Yeah.
So we don't hide fights.
Or shove it under a rug, or
No,
right,
never.
right.
Because I feel like it's very important for our kids to, this is my personal opinion, that for kids to watch parents have disagreements. It could be fights, it could be, difference of opinion, it could be a lot of things. But that, hey, I think the responsibility lies in the way you resolve it, the way you make it better, because actually it's true, right? Like, we all can have differences, but it's how you resolve it and how you're, and I don't need to agree with everything that my husband says, or what I say, but that accepting that, hey, this is how it works for him, this is how it works for me, and it's okay, and then we make peace.
Right.
And I think it's so important for kids to watch, because they learn that it's okay, because otherwise I feel like I don't want them to be in a bubble that life is perfect.
Life is perfect. Yeah.
And it's like, I think life is perfect in the way that we perceive perfect as. I think I want them to know that everything is so like resolvable, and it's a matter of sitting down, talking about it, being open to the other person, and giving that space for the other person to share, and making it better.
And it's a brilliant way to be models for our kids. I feel like so often we're repeating the same patterns and the same kind of trauma, and we're passing it down to our kids because we saw our parents fight or not fight, or scream at each other, or just ignore each other, or not talk to each other. And I think, and here, Brave Table fam, you all know this, like, I'm such a big proponent of having brave conversations.
Right.
And in brave conversations, we kind of talk about, all right, how are we feeling? Do we agree with this? Do we not agree with this? How do we bring it up? How do we bring it up from a place of just facts, and then kind of share, how do I feel about this? So that those two things are kind of not attached.
Correct.
And I think that, in our many times in our families, it just wasn't modeled that way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I'm so glad you're doing this with your kids to be able to, most of our relationships, to be able to fight. Like, if you're not fighting in your relationship, I mean, something's kind of wrong. If you're afraid of conflict, if you're afraid of conflict, if you move away from conflict, so there's something that you are probably running from. And to not be afraid, because it is so easy now in the new dating world to just swipe, ignore, ghost, and not really get into
busy with life, and then it goes under the carpet,
and then it keeps
right?
going, and then your carpet, is like this big, miles high, and we're not really resolving it. And so for our kids to say, oh, this is how mom and dad, this is how it's like the repair. I kind of like the conflict, but then the repair and the reconciliation. How do you, and I love that you shared, everything's resolvable, because it is. And I want to segue into kind of our last bit, because I think this is so important for moms in general. You have a 17-month-old girl. Let's talk about postpartum depression.
Yeah. I mean, I even now, I feel like I in my life is probably the strongest person I know. But I realize, like, something hits you so hard, and like, I think I didn't expect it, because also, just to go back a little bit, my first child, my son, the pregnancy, after he was born until date, the easiest journey ever. Like, I felt like, hey, this seems nice, this seems great, and I'll do it again, and this seems fine. And then I get pregnant with my daughter. I think a lot changed, and had the toughest like pregnancy in a way where I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep for for like through that time, and I still like I'm there where I struggle to sleep, and I think that it started with sleep, and then it got uh, to emotions being all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think the first 6 months, I didn't have help with my daughter,
Ooh.
which I think threw me out of everything that was even remotely comfortable. And I think that sleeplessness got me.
The sleep
And
is like the worst to lose.
yes, and
I mean, there's a thing called sleep torture because what's one of the reasons why they
yeah,
use it, because it's a thing.
it's the hardest thing. I think you can deal with anything, but no sleep is you just can't.
It's so hard. And then you also have a toddler at home too.
Yes. But I think, yeah, the thing is, I feel like, or rather, I didn't see it coming. After the first 3, 4 months, I think I started, number one, I started forgetting. Like, I am somebody who remembers almost everything, you know? And like, I would never forget like one thing to another. And then suddenly it's like, I say lock a door and then I come out and then I turn back not remembering if I locked it or not. And I keep something in a place. And I got to a place where I couldn't remember if I've eaten or not. And it really got bad. And I knew that something was off. And I think 3 months into it or 4 months into it, I remember telling Robin that I think something's wrong. I think something's off because I'm not feeling like I'm myself. And you know, at that point, I mean, he's been so supportive. Honestly, I can't be like I just don't have words to be grateful for how he's been in this journey with me. But he at that point initially he said, you know, Sheets, you just need some sleep, you know, maybe get some rest, you know, try and, you know, get this done, that done, and, you know, maybe go for a spa and should get better. And but it was more than that. It nothing was gonna just make me switch back into normalcy. And I think when it hit him was there was a day when I think my daughter was around 5 months old or so. I was so tired, and he was traveling for a tournament, and he had called, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so tired that um, I think I just want to feel like I'm dead. And he's like, Sheets, that's what are you saying? And I like in that moment I actually repeated myself, and I said that, yeah, like I just want peace right now, you know. I because I just was I don't know, I couldn't I think it was an ending, you know. And for me I said, you know, right now I'm just so tired, I want peace, and I feel like I want to feel like I'm dead. And I said, anyway, you know, I gotta go, bye. 10 minutes later is when I've reflected back on that conversation, and I'm like, did I just say that? And if anybody or whoever knows me knows how much I love life, I love myself. I'm somebody who loves life, who always have. And for me to say something like that without being conscious of it said a lot. And Rob was like, hey, you know what? We need to get help. And that's when I reached out first to my therapist, who I speak to regularly. And then she said, I think you should speak to a psychiatrist. And then immediately, like, got my appointments and spoke to her. And she was pretty shocked that I was even walking around normally with how deep I was into
The
the
postpartum
depression
depression.
I was in.
Yeah.
And she said that this is probably the deep part of postpartum depression, and like you gotta get onto meditation,
Meditation as well. Yeah.
meditation as well, but medication like now, like it was like that. And initially I had like this, I think like kind of mental block about it. But I think I learned that, hey, I'm not getting sleep. I have two kids. I have to still, I can't just go for a holiday for 2 months. There is, my life is in a, with a certain situation, or with a certain, it's in a certain phase. And I need to accept that first. And then I need to navigate
Mm-hmm.
through life, through the depression with it,
Yeah.
and accepting it. And yeah, that's when I think I started taking medication, and definitely started feeling better, I think, after a couple of weeks. But did it just go away? No, I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably still going through it,
Yeah.
because I think it's a journey,
Mm.
and I think it's a lot of work, self work, to do things that you don't want to, which I still fight with Robin about. And he keeps pushing me to do things, and when you start feeling a little better, you take it for granted, and then
Of course, you put yourself on the back
yeah,
burner.
yeah,
And I feel like, the story that you're describing, there's actually a story in my book, That's Up Now What? Actually, a few stories of literally this exact notion
yeah,
where you're either one of the stories in the book is from a mom who actually she did IVF for quite a few years to have her twins, and she finally had her twins, but she felt so guilty to ask for help. And so because she felt like, okay, I did all of this work with all this IVF to have these babies, I should be grateful. I should be grateful. I should be grateful. Well, she was drowning in the lack of support,
yeah,
the lack of sleep. And, the one day, and it's vividly described, where, her husband goes to work. He was a doctor, and basically he forgot something. So he came back in the house to get something, and literally she had passed out. One baby is like crawling on the floor. The other one's like, just like in her hand, but like almost about to drop the baby. And finally was like, you are not okay. You need help. Like, you cannot be doing this by yourself. And I feel like a lot of times as women, because, I think I shared my whole story with postpartum with you. I feel like a lot of times, and what I've gathered, I kind of did my own little study and research. And I think there are actual studies out there, but most of the time it affects, because I was so fascinated about this. I'm like, why is it affecting like type A, very strong,
yeah,
accomplished women? And I think it's because of the fact that, we have so much certainty,
yeah,
and we have so much certainty. We have kind of the next destination where we want to go.
yeah,
We
yeah,
always know we're going from A to B.
yeah,
And with motherhood, you're like, what the F is going on? Everything is uncertain. Everything is chaotic.
yeah,
Everything is messy. Everything is disorganized.
yeah,
And it's not one aspect of your life. And I feel like even if you're used to getting a certain number of hours of sleep, you don't know that as a mom, especially in the first few months, if not.
yeah,
And then the whole boatload of emotions. And I think you shared something about receiving. I definitely wanted to push everybody away, and I mean, that was my own healing journey of healing my traumas in losing my mother and not really accepting help from my own mother-in-law, thinking that I'm the boss. I can
yeah,
do it
yeah,
all because I've had to do it all,
yeah,
until you say actually 3 words like, I need help, right? And for you to actually share that with Robin, like, what the most beautiful gift you could give. And I feel like anybody who's listening or watching this right now on YouTube, if you suspect somebody of experiencing something like this, or just low key, maybe even picking up on sentiments like you sharing, I'd rather die,
yeah,
than just being, and it's so subconscious.
yeah,
This is the key to ask for help. This is the
yeah,
key to not go at it alone. And I think, I don't know if we're talking about it a lot. I feel like it's one of the reasons why I started the Brave Table, based on conversations like this. And I think that coming from our taboo cultures of
Yeah.
sweeping everything under the rug, everything's okay.
Yeah,
You see,
yeah.
my daughter is dressed really well. We look really good.
Great.
Everything's perfect. Log kya kenge, but then we're suffering in silence.
Yes.
We're,
And I think you I think, rightly said that strong women, I think, take this responsibility of, oh my god, I can't be feeling this, I can't be getting into this,
And we judge ourselves for even
yeah.
feeling like
And I
this.
feel like I kind of felt that initially, but I think I quickly got to a place where I had no control, even if I wanted to. And I feel like, like you said, that we're always certain of how you want to, do the next thing and where you want to be and, what your goals are, etc. And then suddenly everything's come crashing. And
Life has
I'm
just
like,
stopped.
where do I pick up what? And
I don't even know what it is anymore.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that kind of, I think it for me personally, it just like, I genuinely feel like I went down deeper than what I probably should have, only because I was trying to pull myself every day from a certain place.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, today I'm feeling like this. No, I got to feel better. I know how to feel better. It's like because I've done it before.
Yeah.
But then it's not happening. Nothing is helping. And I think like everything started feeling better when I said, I don't want to swear, but F it.
Fuck it. Yeah.
Fuck it.
Fuck it.
And then
Yes.
I was like, you know what? This is how it is. Now, let me feel shit. Let me feel crappy. Let me feel like useless. Like, because there was a lot of
Like allowing yourself to feel bad.
because I think a lot of questioning happened about self-worth and can I even do this? Did I make a mistake by having, my second child? Maybe I'm not made for this. Maybe someone else is and I can't do this. Because there's a part of me that, hey, later on I did get help.
Right.
But I'm not able to manage. I'm still not able to manage. And is it that I probably thought too much of myself and I've taken this upon myself and then now I'm not able to handle it. And then will also the responsibility of what will the experience of my kids of me at this point.
Right.
Is this what I want to give them? But then I'm like, I think it took time for me to say, hey, you know what?
This is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
And this is my journey. And what is going to come out of it whenever I am going to be out of this is going to be great. Because when I look back, I know that I will look at my journey and I'll be like, hey, that was a tough one, but it didn't beat me. And
what do you say to the younger part of yourself, the little Shheethal that started playing tennis at 8?
that it's okay. You did your best then, and I genuinely am very proud of the child I was. I'm feeling emotional, but yeah, I just feel like I was too hard on myself as a child, and because of the amount I took on as a child, I just was, I think, almost unkind, to my child, like myself then. And in this moment, I'm feeling like, hey, you should be proud of yourself, and you did great. Yeah.
What does it mean to be brave?
For me, I think anything to do with the word brave is me being myself. And no matter what that is, no matter who likes it, who doesn't like it, who accepts it, who doesn't accept it, everything is secondary. And I think it takes a lot of courage to actually be your authentic self, because I feel like that's a miss in almost everyone we meet, because everybody's portraying to be this, that, because that fits into this family, this set of friends, this community, this office. And I feel like it's so important to be yourself, to be who you are as an essence, on a daily basis. And I feel like that goes a long way. And that I feel like, yeah, that is brave for me.
This is huge. And then finally, what word describes this season of life?
I feel gratefulness,
Mm.
and I don't know, like when you say season, nothing is standing out for me,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. All I feel right now is grateful
Yeah.
that I'm even able to share this, but also that I have a wonderful family. I have, like, I can't tell you how supportive Robin has been
Mm.
through everything. Um, and my kids. Yeah, I think I just feel grateful. And
Well, I'm grateful for you to be able to
uh,
share your entire story and your incredible wisdom. Where can people get a hold of you? Because I feel like you're going to have a lot of folks running to know more about getting in touch with Shheethal.
yeah, just on my Instagram or my email, which
Yeah.
is on my Instagram,
What is your Instagram?
Shheethal Robin Uthappa.
Okay, with two H's, right?
Yes.
Two H's. And we'll put it all in the show notes.
Yeah.
Shheethal, this was an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. This was nice. This was wonderful sharing. It's always nice to share because I feel like even one is me sharing, but also when another shares, there's always something that you can take away, with that. And I feel like it's important to share. It's important to share. Yeah, but thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I know you're gonna go to Instagram. Go ahead, follow Shheethal Robin Uthappa on Instagram. I will link her in the show notes so you can go ahead and see all of her behind the scenes and how she's doing family life. And I think it's so admirable and so freeing that we can actually normalize some of these conversations, especially when we come from parts of the world where there is a stigma and there is taboo to talk about how we're actually really feeling as moms. And sometimes it's all about keeping up with the Joneses, that you're not going to share how hard things are because we should be happy or we should be so grateful. And we are. And those emotions and feelings can coexist because motherhood can also, at the same time, be hard AF and chaotic and messy, especially in the first few years of a little human's life. And I feel like I'm just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. My daughter turned 3, Isla, and now we are, even though there are still some scary moments, it's a breeze as compared to the first few years. And I think your hormones are out of whack. So if you love this episode, if you think somebody else can benefit from this episode, if you have a girlfriend, a mama, a neighbor, a coworker that may be secretly struggling, send this episode to them because I guarantee you they may find solace. They may find that you're giving them permission to actually say, hey, it is hard. She's actually right. These are not all wrong things. And I want to hear what you have to say in the comments. Let's continue these conversations in the comments below. I just know that this will help and benefit so many more people. So if you did find value in this, let me know what you think. Share this on Instagram, share it on your stories, tag us at Neeta Bhushan, tag Shheethal, tag the Brave Table, follow us on our journeys on Instagram as well. And if you have stumbled across this video and you want to know more, go ahead, check other playlists. You'll actually see this in the show notes. We are also linking 3 other episodes so you can go deeper if you are curious about managing your own mental health, your own emotional health, and just being kind to yourself in this stage and era of your life. We would love for you to subscribe to the channel. And if you have the time, go ahead and like us on Spotify, hit the follow button on iTunes so that this can get into the hands of more and more people. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time on the Brave Table.